Well, we've got Libby Weber on the line with us here, and we're going to talk about her book, From the Heart. Good afternoon, how are you today?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you for asking. Now, this book that you've got out now, From the Heart, how would you describe it?
I would describe it as an inspirational book based on my very travels within the United States and the photography that I've taken during those trips and the emotional poetry that I've connected with the photographs. So it's an inspirational book that you can sit down and just smile about when you're finished.
How easy or hard is it to write a book of poetry based on images?
For me, it's fairly easy because when I see something that's worth capturing, it sort of touches me in a special way. So once I look at that photograph on my computer, or even while I'm shooting it, things come to my mind to write about. So I just put them down on paper, and hopefully the feeling that I'm feeling comes across on paper.
Yeah. And where did the idea for this book come from? I mean, when you were taking these pictures initially, were you thinking, ooh, I could write poetry about this? Or did it just come about later?
No, the idea came about when many years ago, as a single mom, I was on a really strict budget. So I made a lot of my greeting cards and I used a lot of my photography for the greeting cards. And so I just sort of started writing the poetry then out of necessity, pretty much, because I really couldn't, spend a lot of money on greeting cards at that time. And so then the idea thought, well, I think I can put this with my photography, and I think people might like that. So it just sort of started as an idea with greeting cards and turned into the book.
Have you ever thought about selling greeting cards, instead of just giving them to family?
Just to give you an idea, I've had many rejections in my life. I've submitted my work to greeting card companies, and I have a file folder at home of rejections.
Wow.
And I had a friend ask me, why on earth would you keep a file of rejections? And I told her, because it reminds me that I tried and that I didn't give up, and it's better than not trying. So I do have rejections, and yes, I have tried it.
Those rejections are maybe worth it in the end if you get approval eventually.
Yes, maybe some of the the companies that rejected me might see my book and go, oh, I should have listened to her. I should have responded to her.
Yeah. Would these pictures work for postcards, maybe, if they're of particular places of interest?
Yeah, I think they could be used pretty much for anything. I have lots of photographs that I actually have a file for cards or postcards that are sort of, images that I've captured of animals, things that are funny. Sometimes they're funny or just really unique. And so I put those in a file, not to write about, but to use maybe on a card or postcard, something like that.
It's Christmas coming up soon. Are you looking forward to being able to make some cards again?
I typically do an annual letter. But it's not really poetry. It's about my year. So I do an annual letter with pictures and then photographs. This year I'll be able to talk about my book and have photographs of my book. But I sometimes I do just one shot, but typically it's multiple shots in a letter about what happened this year and everything that I've taken with my camera that's newsworthy in December.
Yeah. And for the book, were there any pictures that you couldn't write poetry about to include in the book?
Yes, there are pictures that I photographed of people who requested me not to put them out anywhere. But I have some really unique photographs of Native Americans, and I really wanted to write about them. I really wanted to put them in my book, but I respected their requests and didn't. But most everything is I could put in the book. Nothing, unless it's like a person who requested that I didn't.
So how many pictures are in the book overall?
I don't know. I think there's it's a small book, so there's probably 30 pictures with 30 poems. And that's an approximate. I don't have that right in front of me right now.
How long is each poem? Do they vary?
They vary, but usually it's on one page. And there may be a couple in there that are 2 columns on one page. So typically, how I have my book lined up is the photograph with the name of the photograph. The title is on the left page, and then the poem is on the right page. And so when you open those 2 pages, you see the image, and you can sort of relate to that once you read it, and you go, yeah, that makes sense. Or no, that doesn't make sense. I don't understand. But hopefully they do understand and they get it.
Yeah, it's a good idea to have the picture and the poetry, because then you get to see what the poem is actually on about, don't you? Because most of the time when you read a poem and it's describing a scene, you don't really get to see it out with your imagination.
Right. And for an example, one of my poems is called The Butterfly Awakens. And I sort of speak on behalf of the butterfly. What are you feeling? How am I feeling what I want to do as a butterfly? And so I just sort of put myself in that character. And sometimes when I write, I have one called about a tree on a beach, and I'm talking as if I'm the tree, and I'm withstanding all the horrible weather that's come my way, but I'm still standing, and I'm determined and not going to give up. So I sort of speak on behalf of the tree as a person. If that makes sense to you.
Yeah, well, it's a great idea to do perspectives that aren't often covered. How do you put yourself in the mindset of a tree or a butterfly? Because I don't know if science really knows much about the personality of a tree.
I'm trying to think. For instance, I have one called Lazy Day Afternoon, and it's about a cat laying in a windowsill. And I'm thinking, you're really a lazy cat. And I just sort of tried to think about what that cat might be thinking. He didn't care that there were people coming by. Yeah. He just stayed in that window, relaxing, enjoying the afternoon sun. I don't know how I put myself in there, but I just do.
And how long did this book take you to write?
I've been writing with the photography for many, many years, but I actually started putting everything together early this year. And actually last November, I take it back. I started putting the poetry. I sort of did a rough draft of the book myself with the photograph and the poem. And then once I got that all together, then I went, to a publisher and asked for help.
Starting earlier this year, it's maybe surprisingly quick, because a lot of people spend ages on books, don't they?
Well, I've been writing some of these photographs and poems that date back to 1980. So it's not like in November I started writing. I went through everything, categorizing and just trying to pick the ones that I thought were the best for my very first book. And so it's many, many years of writing, many, many years of photography, going from print film to digital film. I don't think any one photograph in the book has been edited, maybe one, but for the most part, I didn't have editing software. So what I photograph is what is on the paper.
Was that quite a tough selection process, picking out the best poems for the book?
I think what I did was just try to pick out the ones that touched me the most, and how I felt when I wrote that, what I was going through. A lot of my journeys were emotional, and so it affected how I wrote about that photograph, what I felt. What was I doing that day? Did I get in the car and take off because I was having a good day, or did I get in the car and take some pictures because I was having a bad day? And what came out from that. So it just really truly from my heart, what I was feeling is what I put on paper, and what I felt when I looked at that, when I was actually on the coast taking a picture of a tree who had been standing there for so many years and was just so determined, and sort of connected with my life, trying to get through some of the crisis that I've been through. Yeah, I'm going to get through it. I'm going to do this.
Yeah. What's the reason for writing this book? Because it's not what a cynical person would assume is the reason that everybody writes a book, to make money. You're not doing that, are you? It's more the passion.
I have a passion for people, and I have a passion for sharing and giving. And I've had a lot of comments back from the book, how it's touched people, how it brought back a memory from their childhood, how it made them smile, how they connected to that the same way I did, even though they weren't even there. And so I just want to share the beauty of what's all around us with the words that come out of my heart. And hopefully people will enjoy that and go back to the book several times and read it, especially on a day where they just need a little uplifting.
And what have the reviews and general feedback been like for the book so far?
I've had very positive feedback from the book. I've had people say that, this brought back a memory. I didn't really think about that. It's so long ago in my life, but when I read your book, it brought back that memory, and it was so sweet. And when I closed the book, I smiled. And so it's just touching them in a special way. Again, my goal is not to be a rich, famous author. My goal is to have someone call me on the phone and said, "You touched my heart." That means more to me than any amount of money.
That's really what you should be doing it for, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
How did you get into poetry?
It goes back to the greeting cards. And I used to write my mama Mother Day cards, and I just wrote pretty much in a poem thanking her for all the things that she'd done for me. And the very first poem in my book is called A Mother's Love. And this is pretty much written for my mom, and who I lost in 2016. And so the poems just came with the need to tell my mom I loved her, or to tell a friend how much I valued their friendship, or if someone lost a loved one, to sharing them with a poem how I felt their pain and how I hoped that they would recover.
The photography as well, how did that start?
Even as a kid, my dad was always taking pictures of the family, and I think I just got the bug from him. He always had an old Kodak camera. If we were traveling in the car, whatever, he'd always have that camera around his neck. So I think I got it honestly. I got my first camera in 1980, and it was a Minolta film camera. And one of the photographs called Illusions in my book is from that camera. And as I got to where I could afford to get a little bit different camera, I would upgrade as my budget would allow. And then my husband bought me my first digital camera for Christmas one year. And so that's when I went digital. I don't remember the year.
And how's the technology changed? Because of course you've mentioned that you've went digital and you don't need film anymore.
Well, I love it because I was always broke trying to develop all these pictures, and maybe none of them turned out. I would have the exposure set the wrong way, or the ISO set the wrong way in this camera. And it's just great to have it digital so that you can see it on your screen. Now I have a very nice digital camera, and I can see on my screen before I even take it to the computer. And it's a lot less expensive.
Yeah, although there's many nostalgic people that maybe quite like the whole process, really, of getting the film done and having that physical thing.
Yeah, I did some developing early on, but I really never could afford to set up a Lightroom as a young adult when I was photographing. And I think that's if you can do that and do it well, I think it's wonderful. But I'm really gotten used to the digital processing, and so I think I'll stick with that.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think you could write more books after this one?
I have started book number 2.
Hey.
Yes. I have one photograph and one poem written. So I started about a month ago, but I'm in the process of marketing my book. So it's sort of taking time away from me being able to write. But I do go out at least once a week and try to do a photo shoot to see what's out there. And so I'm constantly looking for that special photograph. And basically wait for the right moment to sit down at my computer and see what comes out.
Yeah. So by the sounds of it, it's going to have the same format, if you like, as the current book From the Heart. Are there any ways that it differs?
It may be different where it may have more short stories in it that tell about something that occurred a certain time in my life, or it may be about somebody else's something. A lot of times I go out driving in the car, and if I see a little lady working in her garden and she has a beautiful bed of flowers, I'll stop and talk to her. So it may be a poem about Miss Lois's flower garden instead of my flower garden, or my feeling. It'll be something that I took away from that conversation I had with her.
When you're not writing and taking photographs, what do you like to get up to in your spare time?
I have a lot of hobbies. I do a lot of sewing. I like to design aprons. During COVID, I did design a lot of masks. And so I think I got around 700 designer masks made and shipped out during COVID. I play tennis about 4 to 5 times a week. And I do arts and crafts, and I love to bake.
Tennis is fun. It's the only sport, really, that I'll watch. I don't know why. Is there something exciting about it?
I don't know. I have my favorites that I like to watch. I'm certainly not a pro, but it keeps me sort of fit when I'm out moving and not sitting in a chair watching a soap opera or anything. That's just not my style. Yeah. But I do love the friends that I've made on the tennis court, and it's a time where you can go and relax and have fun and play tennis, be active, and enjoy being outdoors.
That's the thing, I suppose. You will make friends because you kind of have to, because it's a 2-person sport or a 4-person sport if you're doing doubles.
Yes, I play doubles. I'm not fit enough to play singles, but I do enjoy doubles. And I started playing about 6 years ago, and I've actually improved quite a bit. So I'm proud that I can play as well as I play on the court.
So will we see you in the US Open next year?
No, you will not, but you may know that I'm sitting on my couch watching it.
Great. Well, where are we able to find this current book, From the Heart?
This book currently is on Amazon.com, and I actually have a new website. It's called lwfromtheheart.com. If you go there, it'll give you a link to where you can go to buy the book, and the website tells you a little bit about me, the author.
Excellent. Well, many thanks for joining us today. It's been great to talk to you.
Thank you.